I'm not generally one to toot my own horn, but the Barbara Banding signing is one that I will. It was like 3 or 4 weeks of not sleeping very much and making a lot of "what have you done for me lately" calls.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of The Late Sub. I am your host, Claire Watkins. It is Tuesday, July 2nd. We have a jam-packed episode for you. We're going to do a kind of keyed-in NWSL preview of one of the biggest games of the regular season. That is, of course, the top-of-the-table clash between Kansas City and Orlando. And the way we're going to approach that this week is we are going to talk to a player and the general manager of the Orlando Pride and talk about how they have turned a team not always known for the postseason picture into a true contender for the NWSL Shield. And then after that, we are going to dig in a little bit on a WNBA catch-up, see where teams are trending going into the Olympic break. Really, really excited for how this is going to go. Let's get started. We are joined by Orlando Pride General Manager Haley Carter. Thank you so much for joining us, Haley.
Yeah,
big week this week.
Yeah,
how's it going? I was gonna say, what are the vibes? How's the energy right now?
Good. It's a pretty quick turnaround. We just got back from LA yesterday, and the team has an off day to kind of get their lives together, and then 2 days in, quick turnaround. But
yeah, I was gonna say, I think maybe underrated, right? The coming off an away trip. It's a shorter away trip this time, but a big turnaround for the team.
Big turnaround. It's as soon as we were done in LA, we were focusing on Kansas City already. So good vibe.
I'm sure. But let's talk about that. We were chit-chatting about it very briefly before we hopped on camera. This is a huge week for the league. It's not just for these two teams, but this is, by my opinion, from a media standard, I say this is the marquee regular season matchup of the season, at least the first half of the season. What does it feel like to be in the middle of what's just going to be a really exciting weekend for the league? Last weekend before Olympians go off to international duty, two top teams on the table, neck and neck. I mean, I was, joking about it, even with goal differentials exactly the same. These are two teams that are on similar trajectories. How's it been being in the middle of all that this week?
It's been fun. When Seb and I came in at the beginning of last season, right, I think we had a pretty clear vision and a shared alignment and values and what we wanted to do with the club and where we wanted to bring it. And, but I don't think that we would have imagined being where we're at as quickly as where we're at. So, we try not to think about it too much, being at the top of the table week in and week out. And I don't even want to think about the standings. We just go 1 week at a time. The athletes are similar, right? Like we just do what we do. We can't focus on anybody else or what other results are or anything like that. And, last year we were in a position where we had lots of opportunities to jump above the playoff line and we never made it happen. And then, you get to the end of the season and your destiny is fate, and fate really relies on other teams. And, we told ourselves we don't ever want to be in that situation. We want to be able to control our fate and control our destiny. And so this year being where we're at and going into the midseason break, sitting at the top of the table, and what has been a really, really exciting season is, it's good. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, totally. Well, mentioning last season, you guys probably, the Pride probably don't actually get enough credit for being in that playoff race all the way to the end of the season, that last weekend. People talk about who fell in, who fell out. What were those, you talk about those building blocks going into this season. What were some of the things that you wanted to implement with this roster last year maybe, and then carrying that into this year, build upon?
Well, it's a long-term process, and building a roster takes multiple transfer windows, multiple entry mechanisms. We knew that we wanted to go and get a real dangerous goal scorer, right? We needed a very dangerous threat. And, we started conversations with Barbara and her agent during the World Cup last year. And we knew that it was going to be a process, and the timing aligned. I think on that, it's really interesting. I've seen a lot of conversations around that transfer and allocation money and the rules around all of that. I think it's really important to make the note, if you weren't paying attention, not a cent of allocation money was used in her transfer fee. Orlando had a history of hoarding transfer or allocation money, and we still have quite a bit of that, but we're using that for salary buy down, because one of the priorities is attracting talent, but paying that talent what they're worth. And so, when you look across the league, we have the best paid roster. That's really important to me. So when we were building out the roster, especially in last season, it's could we keep that core group of young players that were performing consistently, that we knew had a really strong developmental pathway. And then could we look to bring in some special pieces? And obviously, like starting in the back line with bringing in Raffaele last year, locking in Emily Sams for a longer contract, and then bringing in special pieces, right, with the Brazilians who came into midfield, Luana, Angelina, and then continuing to just add like up through the front line. And then, of course, Barbara's like icing on the cake. But it was a very deliberate build, really, where we wanted to shore up our defense and we wanted to make sure we kept our free agents, right? We kept the likes of Kylie Strom, and we locked in Haley McCutcheon for a longer contract and things like that. So really keeping that group of athletes together, because we knew what was happening in that locker room and what we were building at our training facility was really special. And so ensuring that we were keeping those vibes and all of that going was going to be really important.
The Pride have been in the conversation for landing major free agents over the last couple of years. Always, I think people, like you said, there's this understanding that the Pride are very good at delineating resources, but then what is the big buy, right? Everyone was saying, like, what are the big players that the team is putting these resources together to get, and how do you do that while maintaining the roster? And I think, the team doesn't shy away from, not wanting to be too top heavy. But like you said, I mean, we've seen just kind of one-to-one, having a player like Barbara Banda makes a difference. So for you as a general manager, what is that behind the scenes work of maybe players that you don't necessarily land, or things that don't quite work out, to build to be able to have that one major signing of a player of her caliber?
Well, I think it's interesting because, we went after a couple of free agents last year, but something that's really important in Orlando specifically, and something that Seb and I really believe, is that names don't necessarily win championships, and Orlando's history demonstrates that. So when you look at Orlando's history of having big names, that has not necessarily translated to success. So as we're building it out, we're looking for athletes that are really going to fit into the culture that we're building, and that are going to work well together as a team. And so you go after the likes of Barbara. Barbara is an incredible teammate. She's salt of the earth, very humble, comes in, does the work, works harder than anybody. Her and Marta both are just extremely hard workers. And when you look at what Marta has done for the game and the potential of the things that Barbara has to do for the game, like, you're talking about two of the world's best players, I think, in the history of the game, and their attitude and what they bring to the locker room and to the team is really important. So when we were building things out from a free agency perspective, and looking at international transfers, and even our draft picks are the same way. We sort of approach it the same, with the same set of values. There's an entire world of talented footballers out there.
Yeah.
And so for us, like, making sure we're bringing in the right people who are really going to fit into the culture. And the reality is our culture isn't for everyone. Coming into a space where no one is bigger than the club, from the vice president to a 6-time FIFA World Player of the Year, like, none of us are bigger than the club. And really getting buy-in behind that, and everybody's puts the team success above their own individual success. Like, that's hard to do sometimes. So that's really what we look for. As far as the behind the scenes conversations, you put your best foot forward, and I think winning helps in spurring interest. But even in the conversations that we had, like, it's a priority for us to make sure that players, athletes, and staff members know here they're valued. Everyone here has value. So whether you're a trialist who comes in for 72 hours or you're a marquee signing like Barbara, you're treated the same way. You're not treated any different. You get the same level of attention, same level of focus from the staff. And we're creating an environment that isn't just safe, but it's fun to be. And I think you can see on our athletes' faces, like, how much fun they're having and how much fun our staff are having. It's a really special group. So really fortunate to be a part of it.
And taking that maybe even one step further, you talk about, being in line for free agents. That's more domestic conversations, or building through the draft. I mean, I'm just telling you, Orlando, obviously has had really, really good drafts the last couple of years, picked up those, like you said, not only quality, you look like a player like Emily Sams, where obviously very talented, but such a nice anchor, even just as a leader to that back line. But the NWSL has seen, especially this season, this infusion of international talent after maybe coming out of the pandemic, maybe, and some of the upheaval in the league. There was always this question of where does the NWSL rank, or when players are considering making moves.
Yeah.
How have you found that as a general manager? Like you said, the resource allocation is so strong in Orlando, but has league perception affected anything even in a positive way in the last year?
I think perhaps. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like we have not, we got Hafa in, and Hafa and I played together in Houston, so we've known each other for a really, really long time, and
Yep.
which helped in having those conversations. But and she, wants to be closer to her family, and there's a lot of reasons why players make the decisions that they want to make, and it's not always about playing in the most competitive league or playing in Champions League. I will say that I think you have athletes who've made the transition, like Esther, for instance, in New York, who's come in and has said every game is like playing in a Champions League game, and there's parity. And so I think you see players transition. We haven't necessarily, because I'll be honest, like we've gone after athletes like Barbara or Grace, who, Grace, especially for instance, is sort of a diamond in the rough. I think because she didn't get playing time in the World Cup last summer, she just didn't have the visibility, but the potential that she has as well with the right investment, the right staff, and the right resources is significant. So for us, like trying to find those athletes who have the ability to contribute, and you look at Barbara, right? And thanks to Brexit and the UK's immigration and their rules around FA Women's Super League, a lot of those athletes from Africa, just based on where their teams are ranked, cannot get visas to play in FA Women's Super League. So to be able to bring Barbara into this environment, and Timwa and others is really exciting. It's exciting for the league. And I think, if I were to win the lottery tomorrow, I tell people this, I would go and build a youth academy in Africa immediately. I would invest all of my resources in that. The talent pool coming out of Africa is just incredible. So there's some exciting stuff happening there. So being able to attract those players, but making sure that the timing is right, that they're going to be comfortable and they're going to be able to make an impact and be successful in the league is important. But
how has your background, and for people who might not know, you played for the Dash in sort of the early years of NWSL, and then came into this role, but with a wealth of, you did some club work, but also going into some of these, or being an assistant coach for some of these countries. You worked with the Afghanistan women's national team. Talk about overlooked talent, or just sort of understanding those pipelines, and like you said, making sure the timing is right where people are ready for that opportunity. How has that background led to, or have you felt like that background has aided you in these first couple of years as a general manager?
I can tell you, like I'm not generally one to toot my own horn, but the Barbara Banding signing is one that I will.
You should.
I mean, obviously money makes the world go round, so we were able to get that deal done. But there was a lot of commercial posturing and a lot of lawyering and a lot of phone calls and relationships that I used to get that across the line. That if I had not worked in those positions and had those experiences and those relationships and that network, there's no way I would have been able to pull it off. And so I think maybe the casual fan might look at it and say, oh, well, you just paid her buyout. And no, it still took some convincing. And like I said, like there was just one day I could probably write a book about just that transaction alone. But I think, being an attorney and being a former international coach and having that network and understanding as well the dynamics of what athletes who play in sort of these developing member associations go through and what that looks like for them and the resources that they get and some of the issues that they navigate, right? Like everyone's aware of the sexual assault allegations and coercion allegations against the Zambia women's national team coach, for instance. Like those things are not unfamiliar to me. And so I think having that context and having that background and having a strong sense of the environment that we want to create and what we can do for those athletes is really helpful. But yeah, I truly lived many lives in my 20s and 30s. And so I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to bring that entire skill set to it. But I would say all of it culminated in the Barbara Banda signing because it was like 3 or 4 weeks of not sleeping very much and making a lot of what have you done for me lately calls.
Last overall question here. I mean, we started with the really small. We started with like this weekend, right?
Yeah.
But for you as a general manager, this is about long, sustained growth, sustained excellence.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, maybe the results are coming even a little bit sooner than the long-term plan was.
Yeah.
What does this season, I'm sure again, championship ambitions, Shield ambitions, but what does this season represent for you as a general manager and your ambitions for that just sustained success going forward for the
Yeah,
club?
I think it's just the beginning. Like genuinely, it's just the beginning, and it's an exciting place to be because everybody is bought in. And of course, yeah, we want to win an NWSL championship. We want to win the Shield. That's why we're all here. But I think for us, like our focus is so much on things other than results. And I said in the beginning when I was hired that if I have to believe that if you do the right things, the results will start to come. And for us, like our focus continues to be on doing the right things. And the results are coming. They are admittedly coming a lot faster, I think, than we had expected necessarily. But we've got a really special group of athletes. And when I first stood in front of them last year, we talked about there not being any reason why the Orlando Pride can't be at the top of the table and stay at the top of the table. And they just have to find that confidence in themselves, and that we would work with them to give them the tools, give them the teammates, give them the space and the environment to be able to go and find that success. And so for us this year, what this year is about is ensuring that we are continuing to do those things right. Like we are continuing to treat players well, to make sure that they feel valued, to make sure that they feel empowered in the environment. And, not everybody is going to play, not everybody is going to travel, but are we creating a space where even those athletes feel like they're growing and they're developing and they're contributing? Because every single person in our environment is contributing to the success that we have this year. And so we want to keep that moving forward. And the way that we keep that moving forward is we don't necessarily focus on results. We focus on, the day-to-day decision-making that really is the impetus of the culture that we're building. That's why sometimes I can't even look at the standings. I'm just,
right.
Yeah.
Too successful. It's happening
too
fast.
Every day you show up, you do the same things, and you keep it cool.
Yeah.
But it's fun, and it's a lot of fun for the athletes. And, we make fun of Emily Sams for saying having a good time all the time, but it's real. It's very real. Everybody here is having a really good time, and we enjoy the game, and that's how it should be. It's work and it's stressful, but it's a game. And if we're not enjoying it, not having fun with it, then we need to get out.
Yeah. I think that's the ethos, right, for the Orlando Pride this season, having fun and
having
playing
a good time
well
all the time.
That's right, having a good time all the time. Perfect. That's the best closer I could think of. Thank you so much, Haley Carter, General Manager for the Orlando Pride. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
Thank you so much to Haley Carter for joining us for that chat. Love to talk big picture for the Orlando Pride. But to get into what's going to happen this weekend on the field, I want to speak to a player. And I got a chance to talk to Orlando Pride forward, Allie Watt, who has been with the team for a number of years, has seen sort of this rebuild with Sed Hines, and has a lot of really interesting things to say about what it means to be a player in the locker room for a team that has gone from outside the playoff picture to a Shield contender. We are joined today by Orlando Pride forward Allie Watt. Thank you so much for joining us, Allie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I think I want to start like with this snapshot of a moment that you and the team are in this week. Undefeated, season going incredibly well, tied for top of the table with Kansas City, all the way down to like goal differential, with a huge match coming up this week, right? This is like probably the marquee regular season matchup of the entire NWSL season. What's the energy in the locker room right now, coming off another really nice win in LA? How are things feeling? What are the vibes?
We're feeling amazing. Like, we are coming off this win from LA. We're happy to be back in Orlando. We've had 2 away trips, but now we get to rest for a second, get back on a plane and go to Kansas City. First of all, we're just really excited for the facilities and to play in that stadium for the first time. First all women's soccer stadium. That's going to be iconic. But also the fact that we'll be playing another undefeated team that we've been matched up with on top of the table for the whole entire season. So we're pumped. Like, that's the best way I could put it. We are pumped. We're ready for this game. We've been anticipating this game, so we're ready to go.
Incredible. Well, the atmosphere is going to be crazy, right? You know that going in. Again, like you said, that the fan base is known in Kansas City. That stadium is so nice. I've been in it. It's like this kind of this intimate thing where the fans are kind of on top of you. It's going to be loud. What does it feel like being the away team in that situation? I know you're no stranger to those big, like, you go to Providence Park, you've been to those big away games, but this is going to feel like, or is it going to feel like something new, or do you guys feel prepared for this?
I think we're prepared. Well, we just came back from LA, right? They have record-selling crowds. It's so loud on the field. I remember warm-ups, my coach trying to yell something to me, and I just had no idea what he was saying to me, but we figured it out. But it's just, we're prepared for it. When it's nothing new to us, I think it's just going to be a special moment to be on that field, obviously, but like, we're going to treat it like it's any other game, be ready, prepared, how we need to prepare for it. But really, I am excited to see the stadium.
I think at this point, I would personally say, like, there's no underdogs in this matchup, right? These are two teams who have been consistently at the top of the table all season. But when you think of it bigger picture, and I know this having been with Orlando for a couple of years now, this has been a slow build, right? I think you guys finished the end of the season really strong last year. I think quietly put together one of the nicest kind of second halves of the season that we saw from a number of teams last year. And then this year, all the pieces come together. Yeah. Is there still sort of an underdog mentality, though, within this Orlando Pride team, even just based on, like, maybe you didn't think that others expected you guys to be where you are at this point of the season?
Mm-hmm. Well, just going into it, I just remember that we did have this underdog mentality of just more so we were like starting season strong, right? With a lot of ties, we were still undefeated. But we would always just hear people saying like, oh, the other team just didn't perform. The other team's not living up to the hype. I'm like, no, but we're like, it's because we're playing well too. Like, give us a little credit and give us a little respect of our name. I think we've been respectfully earning that respect. So I think that's what kind of fueled the fire, because we were getting really upset. People were saying like, oh, just teams weren't performing against them. Like, no, but we're performing. And I think that's the part that really kind of got us mad. And our Kylie Strom even said that in one of our what's it called? Like our speeches before a game. She's like, let's earn that respect, because we have that respect. We give ourselves that respect. We have that standard for ourselves. So why doesn't the league see us at that point? And now, obviously, now we're at this point in the season, we're like, no, like, you're right. Like, we do have to respect your guys' name, because we have been building this since last year. Last year was hard. It was a rebuilding year. A lot of new things were coming to play. It was Seb's first year and with us as head coach. And like, we're just learning, we're growing together. And just now all that hard work we put in last year in the off season to now, it's really showing. So I think that's just like the part where just like, we're happy we're finally getting that respect at our name, because we feel like we should have had it for a little while, but like, now we're proving ourselves, even though we feel like we have for a while.
How do you maintain that really nice cohesive balance in a locker room? You've brought a lot of players in. There's been a lot of change from last year to this year. But one of the cool things, at least from my vantage point of the Pride, and you're a huge part of this, is it also feels like even the players who were already there last year are taking that next step forward. Like you say, maybe even growing with Seb Hines as a head coach. How do you maintain that balance of, there's a good internal maybe competition level with new players coming in, but maintaining that healthy balance of, no, the entire team is going to step up from here?
I think we just all have really understand that every single player in this organization, this team, coaching staff, medical staff, front office line has a huge role in the success that we're having right now. And we just buy into it 100%, 180%. All of it is committed to it. And I think just like we're rooting for each other so much. Yes, we have inner competition for roles, for playing time, obviously, but we are here for this the same goal, and we're on the same team, and we're just going to push each other to be better. If that person's starting, then I want to make sure they're ready to be starting. And that's the mentality we're going to have. I think that's the culture that we really have had pride in. Had pride in.
Had Orlando, would you say you have Orlando pride in?
We have very Orlando pride in. Yeah. And so I think it's just, we are really just buying into like all or nothing with each other. And it also just helps that we have an amazing group of girls. Like the chemistry in this team locker room is amazing. It's unmatched, I think. And so it just makes it kind of easier for us to like honestly just always be rooting for each other and always to be each other's cheerleaders, whether you're on or off the field, depending on whatever role you're going to have. So I think just knowing each other's roles and just buying into it 100% no matter what is what's really kind of helping us be where we are now.
And how nice is it to see that hard work pay off? I mean, I think everyone kind of points to, you know, Barbara Banda being able to come in when she came in. She's had immediate success, but it's whole team success. When the team plays, you talk about the draws at the beginning of the season. It felt like so much of that was figuring out those on-field processes that allow a player like Barbara Banda to do so well in front of goal, or a player like you in the front line. How nice is it to have that solid team even just behind you physically on the field and know that that buildup is happening cohesively and that the system is working?
It's amazing just to have that support behind, because we could depend on each other, every single person on the field. Like our back line, I don't think they're getting much credit. they need more credit. They haven't their least conceding back line on the whole entire league right now. They're solid. Training against that back line every week, you guys, is so freaking hard, and they're pushing us to be better. We're pushing them to be better. And so now we're finding this foundation. We have a solid identity now, and I think that's what we were building up last year. And now at the beginning of the year, obviously, like, it's hard to come out of preseason and like actually playing games now to like figure out the identity. And now it's like pretty solid, concrete. And now we just want to keep building off that. We have a good foundation now, but now let's just add more layers, keep adding more layers, add more to our attack. Let's be not just a 1v1 team. Let's now like pass to the lines, breaking lines. Transition is a huge part for our team, especially with the pace we have up front. Barbara's, I call her a national treasure in my head, but she's unstoppable. She's like scoring any type of goal. You can't just stop her. And then if you try to stop her, we have Adriana, we have Marta. Like, what else are you going to do? So we have such a dynamic front line, but just a solid back line as well. And that's just, all the pieces are finally just like coming together. But with that, we still have to keep going because we're only halfway through the season. It's only July.
I know. How fun. I mean, this is just sort of a, like, personally out there. Do you have moments where you're just like, I can't believe this is the team that I get to combine? Again, you're combining with Marta, with Adriana, with Barbara Banda. It's like an international all-star team. How fun is it just to get to go play football with those players every day?
It's just fun. Like, I just like, we're like back to a time now where like, you're just like, I play soccer because it's fun, right? That's why I play it. And so now we get to see the combinations that we're doing and like how competitive we get to be at training. It's just continuously like a good time. Obviously, we're serious when we're doing the scouting, when we're doing what we need to do for our 11s, for our build up and shape and everything like that. But if you like ever see like the film from us training or just like us messing around, it's seriously just pure joy. And I think that's what we have in the locker room. It's such an amazing, uplifting attitude we had in the locker room as well. And it just translates to the field and it's translating to results. And so I think that's just like kind of like a good balance we've been finding here. It's just finding like, we are serious when we need to be, but we're always also just like never losing the fact that we enjoy the sport.
We see the personality of the Pride every single week. There's so much personality on the team. Speaking of personality, though, this is a little bit of a pivot. I do want to talk a little bit about the off season, which is the reality docuseries that you were part of filming in the off season before this particular NWSL season, executive produced by Midge Purse. I thought the trailer dropped, as people might know, the trailer dropped, I think it was 2 weeks ago. There was a little bit, this is going into like reputation, perception, post-season, all of that stuff. There's a moment in that trailer where there's like a little bit of cross banter about like team perceptions, right? Or post-season or, you know, success that people have. For you, I mean, first of all, I just wanted to ask, what was that experience like filming that? And did it feel like some of those moments were a good representation of kind of like pulling behind the curtain a little bit of what people don't see when players hang out like that together?
So I think what's so special about the off season is just that how real it's going to be. Like the amount of real conversations were in that household. First of all, we had Lola Bonta in there. So it speaks high volumes to itself. We have Midge Purse in there. We have Taylor Smith in there. Anna Manu, like Nikki. Like, it's just like when you think about the personalities we had in that house and just the amount of like experience throughout that league, we've seen stuff. We've seen a lot of things. We have a lot of experiences throughout and different perspectives, I think, is what the most important thing is. But obviously, like, we're having fun, right? You see the fun part of everything. Like, it's 12 girls living in a house. We're having a great time. Training was really fun. It was really detailed. And I can never like talk how highly I was loving the training there because I felt like it really did prep me really well for this season. But just the talking about how real, like everything behind the scenes of just off the field stuff is actually, it was even blowing my mind what I was hearing. Cause like, holy crap, like I had no idea. Like I've been my 5th year in the league and I didn't know half the stuff I was hearing or just like the backstory of so many other people. But we play each other every weekend, right? I see who you are on the field, but who are you off the field? I think is something that we really don't give credit to athletes of understanding that we're so much more than an athlete. Hi, I'm Allie Watt. I'm actually just like Allie. Like, I'm not just a soccer player.
Totally.
And I think that this gives a great opportunity to just look into off the field, off the pitch of just who we are and just get to know us. Like, I learned so many things about every single one of those players. Kelly Hubley loves to cook, I found out. Had no idea. She cooked us a meal. It was fire. Like, it was so good. And like, oh, they were so much fun. But it's just, it gives such a real perspective of like life of just throughout our careers, but just like off the field and just the dramas that we all experience. And it's nice to like relate to other people about the whole entire thing. but we're all in this together. And I think this is going to be really special. I can't wait to see it because I only have seen the trailer as well.
I'm sure. Right. Yeah.
I only lived it, so I don't know what's going to be in it, but just there's so many raw, real conversations in that house. And I think that's what I'm really excited for people to see like what was being said in that house, because it was so real. And that's what, like, it's reality TV, but it was so real.
Right. This is actually perfect. This is the perfect tee up for my last question, which is the question that I ask everybody. And the answer can be on the field. It can be off the field. It can be even bigger picture than just an NWSL season. But for you, such a good start to 2024, right? First 6 months of 2024 going so well for both you and the team. What does the perfect rest of the year look like for Allie Watt?
The perfect rest of this year. I want to score more goals. I want to produce more. I think as a forward, I underproduce, and that's really frustrating. But we're going. I'm still growing as a player a lot, every single day. And so I think for going into this next half of the season, obviously just like continuously be embracing in my role, what I have with the team, whether it's subbing on, whether it's a starter. We have this Olympic period thing, right, of this tournament thing. So a lot of playing time there. We just got all of our Olympians getting announced going to Olympics. So that's super exciting. So just like continuously growing and just like always have a positive mindset, uplifting my teammates, grinding it out. Cause like, that's all we have to do. We have to keep grinding. We're only halfway through the season. We're not satisfied with where we are right now. We're losing we're not losing. We're second on the table because of not goal differential, not because of wins, not because of like whatever. It's because they are scoring more goals than us right now. And then we need to score goals. We're going to continuously be grinding to push, score goals. The expectation for this team and for myself is for anybody in this league. We want to win championships. We are going to be so disappointed and never satisfied unless we're winning this trophy, the shield, the championship. And that's all we want. We're going to be grinding for that. But I just want to keep growing. I just want to keep having a fun time here in Orlando and just keep having a party. We're having a great party down here. We're always having fun. Marta always says it. No one else is having fun but us. And we're going to continuously go with that motto. Off season, I don't know. Read more books. I'm starting my 41st book. Like, I have a Kindle now. My Kindle's amazing. I love my Kindle. I'm going to try to read over 100 books this year, maybe. I don't know. Random stuff like that. But honestly, just like, I think the most ultimate goal is just to stay happy. I think that's the mental health of like being happy, finding like your balance in life is also, I think, overlooked. So I think overall, just stay happy. But we're having a party down here. So how can you not be having fun and being happy?
Amazing. Happy off the pitch, happy on the pitch. Just loving life in Orlando. Incredible. Thank you, Allie, so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to our guests from the Orlando Pride. You can check out that huge game between Orlando and Kansas City this Saturday. Going to be a marquee NWSL event. Highly recommend checking in. This could make or break the Shield. Frankly, these two teams are that good. But we are going to very briefly here just switch over to the world of basketball because we do want to check in on what has been going on in the WNBA, because there has been a really nice, again, sort of separation of some of these top teams in the dub. We had the Commissioner's Cup game, which went really, really well. Loved that game. So real quick, I think I just want to talk about maybe the top four, and then we'll get into some of the mid-table stuff with WNBA. So first in the league, we do still have the New York Liberty, despite the fact that the Liberty did lose the Commissioner's Cup final to the Minnesota Lynx. That is obviously a huge high watermark game for seeing how teams are doing. There's money on the line. However, that game does not impact the regular season record of either of these teams. So the Lynx do not get a win over the Liberty on their record. The Liberty do not get a loss to the Lynx on that. But a very important head-to-head, I think. I watched that game. I really liked that game. I think as compelling as, again, some of the mid-table or lower-table matchups are, because we're seeing maybe young teams or teams figuring things out, play each other. Sometimes it's nice to see just some good old-fashioned basketball. Minnesota, I think, is currently kind of underrated with the way that they've been able to run their offensive system. I think Cheryl Reeve, after a couple of years of figuring out what the right mix of players is, has that right mix to center the team around Nafisa Collier, but also get the best out of a number of different players. I think Courtney Williams is playing at an all-star level. I think she has been so good as that sort of quasi-point guard who can also shoot the mid-range. We've seen what Kayla McBride has been able to do from behind the arc for the team. I love the way they move the ball. I love the way Courtney Williams finds Alana Smith on the cut. Lots of really, really nice things that the Lynx are doing, which has them now currently in third regular season. at a 14-4 record. The Sun are in second with a 15-4 record. And then I do want to mention that moving into fourth is the Seattle Storm, who have come on strong. They're on a 4-game win streak when we record this on Tuesday. They've had a couple really nice performances. Jewel Lloyd has really grown into the season in a really nice way, which makes sense with some of those big starting 5 pieces that they've been putting together in free agency. She's figuring out that role for her. She had that total green light as a player for the Storm last year, where she was being asked to take a lot of attempts and really carry the offense. Their offense is much more balanced this year. They are a better team this year, but it does take a second for a star player, especially a star guard, who is sort of that player you have to figure out what are your looks behind the arc. What are you playing with a pass first point guard, which they are more a little bit with Skylar Diggins-Smith, but Skylar Diggins-Smith is also a good offensive performer in terms of scoring, figuring out how to work with Nneka Ogwumike or Ezi Magbagor. All of those pieces are coming together for the Storm, and I think they are making that right kind of upward trajectory going into the Olympic break, and it is very nice to see Lloyd figuring out where she fits in that offense, especially for her going into her second Olympics. I think that there's some really fascinating individual performances that are going to make an impact on the international stage. The Sun had kind of an interesting week. They lost some games. They lost some weird ones. They did kind of get back in the win column most recently, but I'm very curious about the Sun. Their record's fantastic. They are 15-4. They are only 1 point behind the Liberty for the best record in the league. They are playing still very well. Their losses are kind of interesting data points to me, though. Interesting to see them kind of fighting through their version, I say, quote unquote, their version of adversity going into this Olympic break that is coming up after such a strong start. So these are the top 4. I think very consistently you can say Liberty, Sun, and Lynx, that top 3, really comfy top 3. We are seeing a push from the Storm, which makes a lot of sense considering what they had to sort of figure out again in sort of rotations and getting the cohesion of that starting 5 at the beginning of the season. And then in 5th, which does still feel low, but there's some context to this, are the Las Vegas Aces. But the Aces, after falling to 6-6, have rattled off 4 straight wins, and they have been good wins. Sometimes a little bit close. They actually haven't always been able to separate too much in the first halves of games. Or you might even see, I think A'ja Wilson had perhaps her lowest performing game of the season this week, though. That doesn't really mean much. Like I keep saying this, I think she is the far and away MVP front runner. But they're pulling away. We're seeing Jackie Young playing incredibly well. We're seeing Kelsey Plum grow into the season. We're seeing A'ja Wilson hopefully be able to take the load off a little bit with the return of Chelsea Gray. So they were at 6-6. They are now at 10-6. And I am very, very curious to see. Some of this is just games played. They're 3 games back from Seattle, but Seattle has played 3 more games. I think the Aces, it's a push-pull of, yes, it's good for them to be building this momentum going towards the Olympics. I worry that the Olympic break is not going to be helpful for the Aces' momentum, and you genuinely hope, with how much Team USA is relying on the Aces, that they will all come back in good health and being able to continue to make that push for Las Vegas, because they are putting the pieces together. They don't have the record probably that they still want to have. They need to rack up a couple more wins to feel really comfy going into the Olympic break. But we never know exactly how we're going to see players return from international duty. So I think the Aces are a really, really interesting test case where on the night they can be absolutely the best team in the league, but on that upward trajectory with some of the injury adversity that they've been dealing with, curious to see how this interruption affects them. Mid-table, it's still a lot of inconclusive stuff. I mean, you go into the Mercury, who again sometimes look great and sometimes don't look great. They had a big loss to the Fever. Not a big loss in that it was not close. It was very close. It was a great game, but it was a notable loss to the Fever. I have sort of this feeling of that top 3 feeling really good going into the Olympics. You have sort of these rising teams of the Storm and the Aces and seeing how the interruption affects them. And then the rest of the teams, I think, just need to cook a little bit in the gym, and they will have the opportunity to do that, except for the Mercury, who are going to have a lot of players out on international duty. So moving into a fascinating part of the season for the WNBA. And I can't wait to see sort of how some of these teams close this out. and how they look when they return. This has been this week's edition of The Late Sub. I am your host, Claire Watkins. Shout out to producer extraordinaire Parker Fenton. Thank you so much for Allie Watt and Haley Carter for joining us this week. Check that game out. It's going to be a banger. We will be back next week. We're moving into Olympics coverage. We're moving into that period of time where the NWSL and the WNBA take a bit of a backseat for one of the biggest premier events of the cycle. Cannot wait for what we're going to get into next time. Thanks y'all for listening.